You're seeing is a very devastating explosion of a car at a sideshow street takeover that went bad. Here's the Fox 2 report.
A rude and terrifying awakening early Sunday morning for people in 3 Oakland neighborhoods.
It's crazy. They're just running around and it smells like straight rubber.
Yet another series of dangerous and sometimes violent sideshows taking over the intersections at International Boulevard and 42nd Avenue, Foothill Boulevard and 55th Avenue, and 98th Avenue in Empire.
Is there any place that's a bigger dumpster fire than Oakland, California? If not, I'd like to know where. This guy, Mr. Genius, and you know, if you're not going to comply with what the cops are going to do, you're going to get your nuts shot with a rubber bullet. Here's the KTLA 5 report. Here we go.
The cop right next to him had a gun and just aimed and shot. He was like, what, like 2-3 feet away? After I got hit, I couldn't really walk. I was just like too much in shock. And then they're still pushing me. I know some other protesters were trying to help me like walk, but they're still pushing them too. And everyone's shouting like, yo, he just got hit. Like,
yeah, you got hit because you did not obey the sheriff's deputies, police officers' commands, fool. And you know what? If you do it again, you'll probably get shot in the nuts again too. Genius. Let's see what else is on the hit parade. Peaceful protest turns tragic. This is from KTLA 5 News in Riverside. Apparently, somebody drove their car into and hit one of the protesters. Some film of it from KTLA 5. You see where it's going, and then you see the car dart into the crew of that and the people running to it. That happened in downtown Riverside. This got a big storm up on iNewsWire. Maybe we'll deal with it in a little bit. We want ICE everywhere. We, the people, have their back. Nothing could be further from the truth. We'll get into more of that in a bit. 100 looters take over a auto zone after a street takeover. The ironic thing is this happened almost a year ago to the day. This would be the first anniversary of a street takeover that they go to the local auto zone and raid it. Last one cost them 70 grand or so, police said in that. Here. The Fox 11 report.
It on Citizen app. Take a look from a street takeover to a store takeover. It happened in a matter of minutes at the Auto Zone on the corner of Century and Hoover here in South LA. It was just after 4 a.m. when drivers took over the intersection, doing donuts, burning rubber, when suddenly dozens of them decided to take over the store, smashing the glass and then with their bare hands ripping open the metal fence on the inside, smashing display cases, looting, getting away with anything they could carry, although some of the stolen items were dropped as they ran. And take a look at this, because it was just 1 year ago this week, June the 10th, 2024, that we were right here at the same store with the same story.
Almost a year later, this stuff is getting absolutely, positively flippin' ridiculous. We have to put these criminal thugs in jail, mostly for the rest of their lives. We did that one of the Riverside tragedy, of that. Tortas. The protests on them are getting out of control. I think Freddie B. posted this. Here we go.
Calling the torta crisis. Torta power! Torta power! Experts blame the shortage of juicy tortas on weight loss drugs like Ozempic.
They said eat clean, but I need her dirty, homie. I ain't seen a torta in 3 days. I need them plump, and I need them now.
Officials say the crisis is under control, but damn.
They took my torta, now I just got beans and regret.
How could he survive?
City officials say they've seen cities fall for less. This time, it was the thick thighs that broke us.
We just want them juicy. That's all we want.
They asked for the meat, but they were met with defeat. The tortas are no más.
She was thick, bro. She didn't deserve this.
You can still find tortas at lowtino.com.
Gotta have a little levity in this stuff, else we'll all go absolutely stone cold crazy. Don't bring your California-ish to Florida. The cops don't screw around down there. You challenge them, it's just like they have the Florida law Ron DeSantis passed. Hey, people are blocking you, threatening you, surrounding your car. You have the right to run them over in Florida. So don't mess with the Florida cops or FAFO.
What for? License, registration. Why are you calling me over? I'm gonna take you to jail if you don't give me your license. Give me your license. Why are you pulling me over? I already told you. Give me your license. Why are you pulling me over? Get off your bike.
Yeah.
Are you stupid or something?
I think he is. You know, if the cop asks for your license and registration and you're operating a motor vehicle, you have been pulled over, which means you are being detained. Well, if you tell them or argue with them, like that gentleman found out, you are probably going to the hoosecow. This one caused a big storm. Dodger Stadium told this chick she was going to sing the national anthem. They said, sing it in English. Well, she defiantly did it in Spanish. Here's a KTLA 5 report.
A firestorm is brewing after a Dodger Stadium national anthem performance took an unexpected turn. A singer claims the team tried to stop her from performing the Spanish version. On the very night, fans were protesting ICE raids in Los Angeles.
Yeah, now the Dodgers are facing some backlash from critics for staying silent on this issue. Jennifer McGraw is live in.
That's why we call them the no balls games anymore, because Dodger Stadium should be kicking that yo-yo out, never allowing her in the stadium again. They told her, don't sing the national anthem in English. And she defied that. The baseball game is not a place to make political statements or support the protesters or what the hell ever. There's your Moreno Valley mayor, Ulysses Cabrera, at the No Kings protest with the guy with his Mexican flag and the whole enchilada. It was posted on Paris Matters. We have a whole host of postings by baby Jesus, who obviously hates America, and he can come in here and defend himself, which to this point, he has not had the intellectual capacity or the guts to come in here and do it as he promised almost 8 years ago. Jose Medina is the same cat. Supervisor, was assemblyman, now supervisor, stands with immigrants. Notice we have the very generic sign. He's down there just like Cabrera with the lawbreakers. That's your newest Riverside County supervisor, formerly assemblyman, failed teacher in a failed education system, failed politician, Jose Medina. Again, please come in, Jose, and defend yourself your educational record, and your political one. Buffoon Bass had this to say with Dana Bash.
About something that the Trump administration did on Friday, which is they reversed course. They instructed ICE to pause immigration raids on hotels, farms, and restaurants, and not to arrest so-called non-criminal collaterals, meaning undocumented people without criminal backgrounds. How is this change impacting what is going on the ground in Los Angeles?
Well, I will tell you that I don't know if anybody buys that here. First of all, we don't have, big fields in Los Angeles. So the agricultural piece does not affect us. But in terms of the hotels, absolutely, and that's a good thing. But I wish that he would look at the broader impact on our economy. For example, the construction industry cannot function without immigrant labor.
Okay, you ding dong. How did the construction industry for many years that built 98.7% of not only the United States, but California, how did they do that without using labor by people in this country illegally or unlawfully? Please explain that to me, Buffoon Bass, you lying sack of ish. Disingenuous. God. It's almost tragic. That tragic scene in Minnesota where one elected official lost her life and her husband, another one, a husband and his wife were very critically wounded by a shooter. But this is Tampon Timmy Walz, remember? South Carolina? Who's creating the rhetoric here? Walz tells Dems to bully the ish out of Trump or risk becoming roadkill. But they're pure. Tampon Timmy never hurt a soul, never said a bad word, never incited violence. This is absolutely uncanny. Eddie George of him at Action Eye News has protesters who are mobbing the cops. Here we go. See if it will play. As you see, this is an Emmett caught by Eddie George of them banging, assault, or intimidating at best the Hemet cops down there of that. So it wasn't all peaceful protesting, even in that. This is a great one. Screw around with a cop. Again, like the gentleman who got rubber bullets in the nuts, the dude who wasn't going to give up his registration in Florida. Let's look at this. Play that again. We'll do it a third time. Kick at the cops, and you're going to get slammed to the ground. It's as simple as that. Lots of other news and stuff we'll get to. Trump's 79th birthday Saturday, along with the Army 250, Flag Day on Saturday, and the big one, 10-year anniversary of Trump announcing that he was running for President of the United States, and the day MAGA was born. There's funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, close to live at 5 on the Evil FB Network Rumble X. Roy Bleckert on the YouTube channel. All that good stuff. Can't get enough of that chick. Hey, if you're a chick, you don't get to pull that card on the cops. You'll get slammed to the ground yourself. You'll find out, as they say, FAFO. Let's run that again. That's pretty good. I mean, holy cow. I wonder if she's going to pull that maneuver again. The whole protester crowd, will get into that. Hopefully Dr. Kelly will have her on, as we usually do at the bottom of the hour on a Monday. All sorts interesting things happening. Of course, the so-called No Kings protest, and even though it wasn't attributed, or they said it wasn't Trump's tweet, where he said, man, whoever made that up, it sounded just like Trump. He thanked everybody for the No Kings protest. I'm sure if he didn't write it, he probably wishes he would have, because there are no kings. Since 1776, we the people, July 4th. No more kings in what's now known as the territory of the United States of America. So, and we're still that today. As they said, if Trump was a king, as they allege, then he wouldn't have allowed that chick over there to get slammed to the ground. He would not have allowed the dude that got shot with the rubber bullets in the nuts. He wouldn't have allowed any of it. He wouldn't have allowed the peaceful protests. He wouldn't have allowed it. Well, he put a stop to the violent protests. That's what the whole National Guard thing was about. He didn't intervene in the peaceful protests. Where were the National Guard or the Marines or the Army or anyone that got involved in any of the peaceful protests? As far as I can tell, they were guarding the federal buildings. And that's all that's been reported. But viva la Trump, as we like to say. This, one of the things that got really lit off, and there were over 100 comments on this one, on IE Newswire when we put this up yesterday. I think I did Sunday morning. We want, I think I stole it from Freddie B or something. I don't know. But I thought it was apropos. We want ICE everywhere. Every possible place we want ICE. And we, the people, as we're wearing the shirt, have their back, along with the military, along with the cops. You know, do we have to get to the point? Let's go back to the 92 riots over Rodney King in LA. Do you want the Koreans standing with their 12 gauges and 30-06s on top of their buildings saying, why don't you try and loot us? How about the same thing that happened during the George Floyd deal just down the street here in Yucaipa? You even had a councilman that was up on top of the roof of one of the businesses that they were attempting to loot or threaten or whatever. And they decided, they did an FAFO, or just decided to get tough. And they found out what tough was. So if you cats want to produce or provide anarchy, or you think you're going to change the United States into Mexico, Guatemala, China, or whatever your issue is, we're not going for that. We're not bringing Mexico, Jose Medina, here for any reason. We're not going to let the United States of America run as a cartel-driven Chinese, like in Mexico, Communist Party of China, run it into the ground like Venezuela. No, we're going to do like Javier Milei did, like Trump is doing here. We're going to employ free market principles. And they're already working in that little Omaha deal. We'll get to that in a sec. But this is Ulysses Cabrera, mayor of Moreno Valley. There he is, standing behind with the dude with the Mexican flag. And this is the whole point. This is what's behind the whole Mexican flag deal. They want to turn they're not waving the Mexican flag because of their heritage or anything. They want that this is the Reconquista. They believe that California is part of Mexico and they want it back. And they want the same drug cartels, thugocracy crap that they've done in Mexico for 150 plus frickin' years. We bailed their ass out in the Spanish War, the Spanish-American War. That was Mexico saying, hey, can you get these Spaniards who are suppressing us over here out? And we did. We took California. We gave them Mexico. And they simply ruined some of the most fertile, productive farmland, natural resources in the entire world, like California, and they've ran it straight into the freaking ground. We're not doing that. 250 years ago, 1 year before 1776, a year and about a month, we formed the U.S. Army. Then We the People, Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. That'll be 250 years next year. Of course, we'll have the great Donald J. at the helm. We're not bringing Mexico. That's what they're not. They try to disguise it between, oh, it's our heritage or whatever. Listen to Hillary Clinton when she was running against Donald J. in 2016. She says, you're going to pledge, you want to come into this country, you're going to pledge allegiance to this country. You are going to learn English. You are going to adopt our culture, not where you came from. Because in 98.7% of the cases, you're escaping some sort of dictatorship, king run. You want to talk about king run? Let's go to Mexico, or Venezuela, or Peru, or Ecuador, or China, Afghanistan. That's the definition of a king rule. Ethiopia. Pick most countries. Some halfway free market ones, but getting less in the European Union. Canada's going by the wayside. Maybe this new guy, Carney, he's meeting with Trump today at the G7. And that's Japan and Canada and France and Germany and UK. That's kind of a club that they formed for like foreign policy reasons. But we're not turning California or the other 57 states, as Obama has said, Ulysses, Jose, into Mexico. That just ain't happening. We allow your protests, your peaceful protests, or your opinion. That's what the United States is about. You have the right to be wrong. Some of the 5,432 renditions when you go back, and that's been our history, our culture, as they say. This also 2 days after Trump's 79th birthday, Flag Day, and the 250th anniversary of the forming of the United States Army. This was 10 years ago today. Donald J. Trump, rolled down the escalator and formed MAGA. June 16th, 2015. As he rolled down the escalator, MAGA was born. He announced he was running for president, started his 10-year journey as our president. Really, even at that 4 years that Biden was in there, Trump was plotting to come back and was on the right side of the issues that now most of the vast majority of the American people, even those that weren't big fans of Donald J., are starting to admit. So this has been maybe the biggest political sea change. Well, this is bigger than the sea change we had in 1980 when Ronald Reagan came in. And you had a lot of, let's say, conservative, middle of the road Southern Democrats that moved to the Republican Party. Mind you, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, a lot of Florida, Alabama were up until 1980 were pretty much Democratic states. Georgia, Senator Sam Nunn, that was there a long time. Fritz Hollings down in South Carolina had a big tradition of that. Democrats used to run. Lyndon Baines Johnson, senator, eventually president. A whole host, the South, up until 1980, was primarily Democrat. Then they switched to Republican. But in some ways it is, but you're seeing even a lot of people that were farther left prior to 2016, i.e. mostly Latinos and blacks, moving steadily in the last 9 years, 10 years, to Donald J. Trump. And the MAGA movement and the Make America Great Again. Again, this is like a sea change. 1960, when blacks moved from the Republican Party, they were like 90% voted Republicans from slavery, what, in the 1860s when they got the right to vote, till 1960, almost 100 years. Then they moved to the Democratic Party. Now they're moving not to the Republican Party so much, they're moving to the MAGA movement. That's why I see, don't mistake what Trump has created politically in these 10 years as a Republican people going to the Republican Party, which puts some challenges in, because when Trump rolls out in about 3.5 years, we're going to have, or there needs to be a replacement for that. And who knows if we'll see it, or which direction will go. 3.5 years is eons in politics, so things can change radically, as we've seen. Almost anybody that's lived more than a handful of years has seen as their time on the top side of the grass. And this is the other thing. And this, I think, sums up the so-called protests. The No Kings rally is the Special Olympics of protests. Really, they've actually made the point in most cases of why you should not be on their position, i.e., we want to take the United States, California, and make it into what Mexico is today and has been for 150 plus years. And that's why it's important to let them peacefully protest when they do, because you need them exposed. At all costs. Because they give you the evidence to point to how you should not do these things. Like this. No Mexico flags. Again, it's not the symbolage of the heritage. It's not the purpose of that. And that would be fine if that's what it was about. Or, if you were flying an African flag or a German flag, or wherever, Iran, Iraq, whatever. If you're doing it as your heritage, or that's where some of your ancestors came from, fine. That's not what this movement is about. One of the very important things, and this is the last one we posted on IA Newswire, this is what we voted for. Trump put out, ICE is coming where the problem is. LA, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Seattle. That's where ICE is going to be, and Homeland Security is going to be concentrated next. we're not doing the illogical, the idiocracy like Karen Bass. Well, where do we have construction workers? How did everything get built before we let massive amounts of illegal immigrants to come in and do the construction jobs? Are those jobs Americans won't do? As we hear ad nauseum. Oh, they're just those low-paying construction jobs. Well, they are now since the labor market's been flooded. Then we had the story of the meatpacking plant in Omaha. 70 some odd arrested by ICE in Omaha, Nebraska, in a meatpacking plant. We heard all the caterwauling today. Oh, and the business owner. Oh my goodness, how am I going to survive? Here he is. On that, he said, oh my goodness, don't know how 72 arrested illegal aliens swept up in a raid. This is from NBC News. How a city in Nebraska is recovering after the state's largest worksite migration raid. Omaha is trying to forge ahead following the raid's chilling effect on that. Every seat in the waiting room of the Glen Valley Foods, which is the meatpacking plant, was occupied with people filling out job applications early Thursday afternoon, 2 days after the meatpacking plant became the center of the largest worksite immigration raid in the state of Nebraska so far. This is in the New York Post. Nearly 1 million illegal immigrants have self-deported under Trump, which has led to higher wages. How many times? How much caterwauling from the Five, from Karen Bass, from Jose Medina? Oh, these workers, we can't do without them, and jobs Americans won't do, and the whole claptrap of stupidity that they've been trying to shove down our throats. We'll get back to a little bit more of this in a minute. 1 million illegal immigrants self-deport under Trump. Wages rise, survey says. This is NDT World. Trump administration has implemented a two-track plan to reduce unauthorized population in the U.S. Greater border enforcement and large-scale deportations were key promises Trump made while campaigning in his return to the White House. In the initial months of his new term, the administration has moved swiftly to fulfill those promises, rolling out a wave of immigration-related executive orders at a pace nearly 6 times that than earlier months in his first presidency. We'll get to the Post one in a minute. Washington Post, the WAPO, claims 1 million foreign-born workers have exited the workforce since March, The Post frames as a sign of weakening labor supply, yet the paper also notes average hourly wages accelerated, rising 0.4% over the month to 36.24 in May as earnings continue to beat inflation in a boost to workers' spending power. How in the hell is that bad for workers? That your wages are going up faster than prices are going up, that means you can buy or afford or have more stuff. You could have a bigger house. You could have a nicer car. Your kids can have better clothes or toys. Or a quad. Maybe you can actually go out and do something. Have some fun. Maybe you can afford to go to Disneyland or out to eat or up to the mountains. When wages rise faster than prices, you have economic prosperity. You have opportunity. You will build wealth. But that's a sign of a weakening labor supply. Well, they admit in paragraph 9,432 that real wage earning power is going up. Same thing in the Tennessee Star. More than 1 million foreign-born workers left the labor market since March. And perhaps the strongest sign yet that President Donald J. Trump's efforts to deport illegal immigrants, encourage self-deportation, and clear the workforce of foreign competition is working. The St. Louis Fed reported that more than 1 million foreign workers left the workforce since March. In March of this year, foreign labor force accounted to almost 33 million people, according to the St. Louis Fed, which had fallen to almost 32.7, reflecting a drop of 1 million foreign-born workers. By contrast, the civilian workforce, labor force, went from 170 to 176, a drop of 500,000. The noticeable disparity in exits as a place of birth appears to reflect more simple exits from the retirement than other conventional factors. So the citizens had more retirees. That's for that. In March of this year, the Trump administration began to seize data highlighting jobs growth, specifically for native-born workers, specifically highlighting that they gained 284,000 jobs in February, while foreigners lost 87,000. For the first time in 15 months, the job gains for native-born Americans exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. Trump celebrated at the time. You've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs. Back to the New York Post. It's by Andrew Arthur. It's penned today. Same thing. The mass deportations will lead to rise, as they have right off the get-go, will lead to rising wages, wealth, economic prosperity in the United States of freaking America. $1 million of self-deported already in what? Almost 6 months? It's about, or 5 months, that's about 200,000 a month. So the 3,000 a day is almost being met by people self-deporting. This is why you're seeing, and in your bigger cities where illegal labor, illegal slave labor, I've called those in this country illegally, are the 21st century slaves. Because like that guy in Omaha with the meat packing plant, you can say, yeah, you're working 60 hours for 40 hours pay. You're going to come in here 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, or whatever. You're going to work in crappy conditions. If you don't meet your production quotas, we're going to oust you back to Venezuela and we'll get somebody else in here. Those ads by Kristi Noem saying, hey, if you self-deport, you may be able to come back in. And they did, well, they didn't go as high as I did, but I think they took my suggestion of paying $1,000. I said $1,500, but who's going to quibble? Say, hey, we realize you were let in here under false pretenses. So here's, well, they settled on $1,000, get you a flight home, or however you got here. You won't have to walk a month up through Mexico. So, like that Washington Post quote, as Andrew Arthur writes, in other words, with fewer illegal immigrants, businesses have to raise wages to attract workers. This is the fallacy of the minimum wage. Jacking the minimum wage up increases inflation and devalues your labor. That's why you see it failing everywhere it's been implemented. Seattle, Los Angeles, California. $15 an hour, $20 an hour. Now they want to go to 30. What Barbara Lee, now the mayor of Oakland, said, oh, make it $50 an hour. These people do, well, they probably understand economics, but they understand power. They crave power much more. So they will sit there and lie through their teeth. Here's the best evidence. How did meat get butchered and packed in the United States for 200 and some odd years without illegal immigrants? How did your home get built in most cases? How did the freeways get built? How did the Empire State Building or the Trump Towers or anything else get built? The Hoover Dam. Orange Show Speedway was a WPA project. This voluntary exodus shouldn't be surprising. When President Dwight Eisenhower launched his deportation roundup in 1954, nearly 10 aliens left voluntarily for one arrested. A post 9/11 registration program also drove self-deportations. DNS can't arrest and deport 15 million illegal aliens, but if it simply enforces the law, many aliens will get the message and leave on their own, as hundreds of thousands apparently already have. Well, I'd say millions. In 5 months, we're already seeing real wage growth. Whatever the number is, what, 300,000 or 400,000 that Trump has, that ICE, HHS have arrested and deported in the past 4 months, plus the 1 million that have self-deported, we're probably close to 1.5 million deportees. 2/3 of them have left voluntarily. It debunks all 1,000%, all of the caterwauling and crying and, oh, the sky is falling. Oh, jobs won't do. Who's going to pick your fruit? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? It's totally mind-blowing at times how people cannot understand free markets. Javier Milei, new president of Argentina, he gave the book to the Pope of Friedrich Hayek on free market economics. I think the last one he wrote before he died. Look at how quick, in 6 months, Argentina went from 35% inflation, 50% inflation, down to almost zero, getting rid of government workers, getting foreigners out, turning on the economic engine of the free market. Allow people to have property and acquire wealth. By their intellectual brain power, labor, etc. Milton Friedman, Hayek, a whole host of free marketeers, ironically, came mostly out of the Chicago Business School, if you can believe that. It's truly amazing. If you turn human beings loose in their creative, not to do bad things, but I mean, if you let them, if they can see a reward at the end of the day from their labor, the fruits of their labor, if they invent a product, the Chinese are not going to come over there and steal it, produce it at 1/3 the cost, bring it back over here, and you get nothing. It's amazing those concepts are so hard to understand. From SoCal's great Stephen Miller, now Deputy Chief of Staff of Policy for Donald J. Trump. Well, this is Gavin Newsom's response to Trump saying, hey, I'm coming into the big cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, of that. This is the fear-mongering, create a crisis where one doesn't exist, walk in with a solution, Gavin Newsom. His plan is clear: incite violence and chaos in blue states, have an excuse to militarize our cities, demonize our opponents, keep breaking the law, and consolidate power. Oh, he's going to be a king. This is what the great Stephen Miller's response to Gavin Newsom's insane totalitarian views. You run a sanctuary state that illegally harbors foreign terrorists and willfully perpetuates a criminal invasion of the United States. The government of California does not recognize, but willfully and maliciously abrogates the supremacy of the federal and constitutional law. In other words, he's saying, Gavin, you may be governor of California, you do not run immigration policy that is set by Congress and executed by the President of the United States. and you're not going to have voting. The next thing that's coming is we're going to be cleaning up. I think the next thing on the pie chart is cleaning up this whole voter thing. That's going to probably be starting rolling out towards the end of this year. Along with this is what Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, Hakeem Jeffries, Chucky Schumer are all caterwauling about everything because they obviously know. And we knocked it down from 20 to 24. But all the votes that appeared in 2020, you know what? We lost 10 million votes from 20 to 24. And the previous 20 years was pretty consistent. Then in 2020, we had this big jump of voters coming in. In 2024, things were getting hot and they started, especially in some of the red states, they were starting to really clean up the voter rolls. That's why Trump won back in 2024. And you saw the big lead still mostly in California and New York and stuff for Chicago for Biden. But like I say, that is what's most likely coming towards the end of the year once they more start getting into, let's say, a groove in the deportations. Preparing for the 26 midterm elections, there's going to be some big time voting and election reform coming to the state of California and across the world. You can almost bet your bottom dollar that will be coming down the pike. Got to have more from Donald J. Well, let's hit some of we'll pick that up in a little bit. We'll see if we can hit a few of these local stories because there's a whole bunch of them. And we don't want to take too much of Dr. Kelly's time. Yes, MAGA born 10 years ago today. Let's get the right one up. See how many we can get in. San Bernardino approves the budget despite backlashes going on over there and legal troubles up the kazoo. Oakland Farmers Market is coming back, so good job there for those guys. Famous, as we say, famous Player of the Week, Victor Figueroa for the Lake Elsinore Storm. Community service grants coming to Arupa Valley.
30 seconds, Roy.
Got it. They're redoing the California Theater. It's almost $7 million renovation coming in. Prescribed burn in Sycamore Canyon coming in the next couple of days down in Riverside, Reno Valley, so be aware of that.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Officers respond to PatriotSwitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of MED, management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire on the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience on the Evil FB Network, Rumble, X, all that good stuff, YouTube on the Roy Blicker channel. Of that, of course, as we said, the protests were the Special Olympics protests. Oh, man. the dude that got shot in the testicles for disobeying the cops down in LA was whining and crying, as we say, for that in all their glory of that. The protesters back there that seem to think that they're going to run everything. They're not. We're not going to allow California, the United States, to go back to Mexico. It just ain't going to happen. Maybe someday we'll get our act together. We've had 10 years. Today's the 10th anniversary of MAGA. Donald J. Trump came down the escalator 10 years ago today and announced his running for president of the United States. Here we are 10 years later with one of the biggest sea change in a political movement that's ever been. Did I got you, Dr. Kelly? Not again. Having trouble. See if it will work again. It's typical Monday, the phones are not working. But we'll have one of the biggest, if we capitalize on this, we will have one of the biggest political renaissance in the history of the world if we stay on the track that we're doing. The economic growth that we've been experiencing under Trump here has been absolutely astonishing in 6 months. In 6 months, 1 million self-deported, 500,000 haven't, or that Trump has and Homeland Security have gotten out of the country, and real wages are going up according to the Washington Post. Yet that should, air raid sirens should be going up broadcasting this. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, the supreme physician in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, Roy, great to be with you. Crazy times we are living in. I have to tell you, I don't know if I should turn the news on or off on any given day.
Oh man, I took most. It's so funny you mentioned that because I just tuned out of most of the news for the whole weekend. I figured, you know, they're not going to the as we call them, the Special Olympics protest was not going to go anywhere. There was a few dust-ups, but actually, I'm glad they did them because I think it makes the point of what they're actually doing. And I want to get to this point and get your take on it. When you see these cats flying the Mexico flag, that's not recognizing their heritage or where they came from. That is, they want to turn California, the United States, into a cartel king run, just like Mexico, Dr. Kelly.
Well, the insanity of it all, Roy, is that you're protesting and flying. The thing you're protesting is being deported back to the country whose flag you're flying. So which is it? Do you love that country and you're flying the Mexican flag because it's so awesome? If it's so awesome and you're flying that flag, why are you so upset about being sent back there since that's where you're a citizen? You know, it makes no sense. The reality is these are paid disruptors. And frankly, all seriousness, what you did over the weekend is one of the best things you can do for your overall health. Fundamentally, I am a physician, we will recall, and you know, I preach health and wellness. And one of the most important things you can do is what you did, which is turn the dang news off. It is toxic. Social media is toxic. 90% of what you see, read, hear is absolutely untrue. It's ginned up. The mainstream media is awful. They're complicit in all of this. And these protests, let's face it, this wasn't some organic thing where a bunch of people got together like they did it for Kent State, you know, back in the 60s or whatever. and protested. These are people who are organized by big money backers. That's why there are pallets of cinder blocks delivered, and hoods and helmets and masks and all this other stuff delivered. These people are paid agitators. Most of them wouldn't be able to find Mexico on a map, let alone, they don't, these are not people who really have a beef with what's happening politically. They don't even know. They're doing what they're doing for the $200 in cash that they were paid to do it.
1,000%. And I think what's really got the deep state, the establishment, the World Economic Forum and all these cats through, and you see it through their spokesman, Gavin Newsom, Hakeem Jeffries, Chucky Schumer, whoever it is at the time. I really think they see that their power is slipping and they're losing control. Trump is coming in, like I said, real wages in the last 5 months since 1.5 million are gone out of this country who were here illegally. Real wages are rising in that short a period of time. You cannot beat the free. I keep saying this. You cannot beat the free market. You cannot beat Mother Nature. You cannot violate the forces of nature, of fundamental principles we know that work, like men are men and women are women. And when you do that, you have a society that's going down the cropper, Dr. Kelly.
You can't deny the facts. Not only is unemployment down, inflation is down to less than 3%. Gas prices are down 30 cents a gallon. Egg prices are down. You can't deny any of that. We are regaining the respect of the rest of the world. At the same time, you've got these buffoons acting up in California and elsewhere, burning things up, flying Mexican flags. That is not engendering goodwill to anybody. At the same time, you've got, a Tim Walz hiree assassinating people in Minnesota. How horrific was that? But as much as they would like you to believe that this is, some Trump supporter, it's not the fact. This was a Tim Walz hiree. There's a convergence of things happening, all of which are good for our side. I'm not, by the way, promoting or advocating for violence of any sort, anytime. It's awful. It's bad for this country. It's bad for everything. But this is the Democrats doing this. This is the liberals. This is their playbook, not ours. Let them do it, and they will burn themselves out.
1,000%. I mean, Tampon Timmy was over there. South Carolina just earlier this year telling the Democratic Party to bully the ish out of Trump or risk becoming roadkill. Now tell me how that is not inflammatory rhetoric. They can use the double standard that they use is absolute. I mean, I got to admire them a little bit for having guts enough to do it, but they can do it. But boy, if Trump said something like that, holy cow! I mean, you'd see a meltdown of epic proportions, Dr. Kelly.
No, absolutely. If a conservative uses a figure of speech like we've got them in our crosshairs, that's all of a sudden, oh my God, you're calling for the assassination of something. But Democrats can show pictures of beheaded Trump dolls and use this inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric, and there's no price to pay at all. We've said it so many times. Look, if it weren't for double standards, they would have no standards at all. And that is the truth. It's not just, a figure of speech. It's the truth. So, the reality is, Roy, I think that if Americans look at what is happening globally, what is happening with our economy, with the jobs market, inflation, grocery prices, our respect around the world, I think you cannot come to any conclusion other than, look, this has been a good thing. My focus is primarily on the healthcare side, and I'm watching what's happening at HHS, what Bobby Kennedy's doing, what's happening at the FDA and the CDC, and it is not happening at nearly the pace I would like it to. But I am a realist. I know how Washington works. And unfortunately, Bobby Kennedy can't just, waltz in and make massive changes the way he and I might like. But it is happening. And in a very short period, we're not even 5 months into this whole thing. We've already had massive changes with regard to, eliminating food dyes and changing the childhood vaccine schedule as far as COVID comes. He's totally flushed the toilet, thank you, Jesus, on the advisory committee for vaccines for immunization practices. He cleared house. So stuff is happening, and it's happening, frankly, at warp speed. Pardon the pun.
You posted something on the X Machine from Peter McCullough's foundation. Very disturbing, but it's something we've reported, you and many others have said, like you and Peter McCullough and others. Pfizer mRNA shots alone likely responsible for over 470,000 American deaths, MIT Florida Surgeon General study. Dr. Kelly.
Absolutely, and it's tragic and awful. People commonly quote the VAERS reports, which is somewhere in the range of 37,000, but the CDC itself has acknowledged that is off by a factor of about 15. So you're talking about somewhere in the range of 500,000 people, Americans, not worldwide, Americans have been killed by the Pfizer shots alone. And those numbers obviously grow every day. That doesn't include any of the others, and that doesn't include the millions of people who were maimed, who have autoimmune diseases, blood clots, strokes, neurologic conditions, myocarditis, and weren't killed. You're talking about 500,000 people killed, dead. Now, if you compare that, Roy, to other vaccines that were pulled off the market, the swine flu vaccine back in 1976 was pulled off the market when there were 50 associated deaths. Same thing with the rotavirus vaccine. After, a handful of complications, the fact that these mRNA shots are still on the market really defies logic. It defies anything other than money, which is the only thing that can drive this sort of thing, and perhaps ego on the part of the president.
It is how you get to the point of these things don't move necessarily as fast as you or I would like them to move. But like with the economy, like with the getting the illegals out, we're starting to actually focus on making make America healthy again, not doing this stuff. I mean, I love Bobby Jr.'s postings in the morning, like, what did you have for breakfast? Steak and eggs, or did you have cereal and whatever was from the processed food companies? And that's the kind of conversations ultimately that I believe will turn this around, because when you start eating healthier, then you become healthier. Consequently, you're not needing as much health care. Consequently, we're saving a lot of money without desperately reforming our medical system like we've talked about many times. But as he said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I see a lot of positive changes coming on, Dr. Kelly.
Absolutely, Roy. And the reality is, as you said, the harsh reality, Dr. Victory's tough love reality is that although our healthcare system is broken and big pharma is awful and corrupt and, fraudulent, and big food has been adding, chemicals and toxins that's all true. But the reality is, we all have choices to make every day. We have independence. You don't need to worry about what artificial dyes and colorings and preservatives are in something if you're eating an apple. Okay? If you're not eating, okay? If you're not eating every day when you go to the grocery store, you have a choice. You can, at a minimum, you can shop the perimeter of the store where the fruits, the vegetables, the meats, the seafood, the cheese, the dairy products are, and stay out of the middle aisles. There's nothing good in there. Pro tip, there's nothing good in the middle aisles. the cereal, the canned stuff, the dried stuff. Don't even go there. So people have got to start taking control. And I love that Bobby is doing that. Had I been appointed as Surgeon General, that was my goal, was to talk every day to the American people about here's what you can be doing to rid yourself of being reliant on big pharma. The best sort of, screw you to big pharma is to say, I don't need you because I got my own blood pressure under control. I got my obesity under control. I got my stress and my sleep issues under control without your toxic drugs. And I did it by exercising and eating right and managing my stress, whether it's, through yoga or whatever it is. And those are the things that I think we really need to hammer on. Do we need to get the mRNA shots off the market? Yes, you betcha. Do we need to eliminate graft and corruption in medical schools? 100%. But there are things that Americans can be doing every single day to take control of their own destiny when it comes to health and wellness.
100%. And I think a lot of it was what Trump's doing with Bobby Kennedy and Tom Homan with the border czar and Stephen Miller as deputy chief of staff is there. And what I think's got them big nervous on the other side is they're rebuilding. The MAGA movement is rebuilding trust with the American people. So you're not going to just try. They're ever increasingly more comfortable that their government isn't lying to them, that they're not shoving them food dyes down in there that are banned practically everywhere else, making you unhealthy and all the other stuff that goes on with that. I think that's if that's the only thing that comes out of the MAGA Trump movement, which this is the 10-year anniversary of it, that will do wonders for everyone's lives, Dr. Kelly.
I agree. And that's what I think people, even I remind myself of this because I get frustrated, as I said, Roy, that things aren't happening at the light speed I would like. I would have loved if Bobby Kennedy could have gone in and on day one said, no more mRNA vaccines, and no more this, no more that. But that's not reality. And frankly, I think that it's more powerful to empower people to take control of their own health and wellness, to say, look, we're going to do certain things, absolutely, getting rid of these food dyes, dealing with fluoride in the water, eliminating. I loved that Bobby said the NIH, our government, is no longer, they are refusing to publish any of their research in the quote, mainstream medical journals, meaning the JAMA, Lancet, BMJ, because they're corrupt. And Bobby said, we aren't doing it. We're going to form our own journal, one that isn't wedded to big pharma dollars, one where we're going to reestablish integrity, as you said, confidence. That is so important. Some of these small things, I would love to see us reinstitute physical education, what you and I grew up calling gym class, in schools. I went to gym class 4 days a week. It was part of standard curricula in elementary school. We have now engineered all physical activity out of children's lives. Nobody rides their bike or walks to school. They all get dropped off 5 feet from the entrance. For God's sake, let's reinstitute gym class so that children get 45 minutes of physical activity a day during the school day. That's really important. Those are things that will make an impact. And I support this administration. I support Bobby. And God knows I support President Trump. We just have to be patient and keep pushing.
Sage advice from the great physician. We'll do this again soon, Dr. Kelly.
Thanks, Roy. Talk soon.
You got it. Dr. Kelly Victory, as we say, saying it only as she can. A lot of great points in there of how we should be. And I think we are. You're hearing those conversations like, hey, we need more physical activity. We need gym class back in schools. More time to play. More time for physical activity. That clears your head. Playing dodgeball clears your head so you can understand. So when you get to the 7th grade and you're in the 6th grade, you're taking pre-algebra, and in 7th grade, you're taking Algebra 1. Not as an elective in your sophomore year of high school or something. A lot of positive aspects going on. And I know we can get mired down in the muck. Try not to do that. That's why I took the weekend off mostly, at least from the news. Picking up some of the local reports. Here we go. Same thing we were talking about. No king, they shout while begging government to rule their health, their pay, their speech, their children, their land, and their future. Bowing down to the government power. That's why we call the protests, they're peaceful protests. They're no king thing. The Special Olympics a protest. TNT Supermarket opening the largest Southern California store in Chino Hills. So you got to look forward to that. Corona police responded to a shooting. Some things. San Bernardino cops are looking for a murder suspect, a Hispanic male, and wanted again for murder on that. That was a nasty wreck there in Purdue. Bobcat sighting at Mount Rubidoux. So there you go. Yeah, the little guy, that's a fairly young one. But as bobcats go, they can leap. Anywhere there's mountainous or rugged terrain, you're going to see bobcats. They're in Sycamore Canyon, they're in Box Springs, they're in the Badlands. Employees of the 55-year-old facility were notified Monday that they had their plant's last days of Cheetos, taquitos, Doritos, and Funyuns. The Flamin' Hot Cheetos, I believe, were developed at the Rancho Cucamonga plant, which is closing. Well, plants are opening across America. They're closing in California because of our stupidity over here. And again, this is what we voted for. Ice, ice, baby. We want opportunity for all. So he said the No Kings rally is the Special Olympics of protests. Oh, man. Proactive stops. Purdue cops found felons with unwanted firearms. Driver fled the scene at a Hemet accident, so they're looking for them. There were only a couple arrests at the Paris one. The arrests weren't that much. I think they probably should have been more all across the Southland, but hey, we'll take what we can get. I think overall it was good to have them protest so everyone can see the fallacy and the purpose of their arguments. This was the big one on iNewsWire. We want ICE everywhere. We, the people, have their back. Look at that, 115 comments, mostly all positive, 147 likes and loves. There's a few negative ones. But again, we got to call them out. In Fontana, there will be maintenance, so some of the freeways will be closed down. San Bernardino County needs people to volunteer to foster little kittens and puppies and stuff that get lost or their parents die or people abandon them. We got to dig into this Rialto School District thing. They've got Judy White's the interim superintendent, which I know very well from her 10 years superintendent of the Moreno Valley Unified Crime Syndicate. Man, they got a dumpster fire with that nutrition services investigation, and appears to be some very shady stuff going on there in Rialto School District. Another suspect wanted, cold case homicide arrest from down in the lower desert, so good job cops on that. Claremont Farmers Market is still trucking along, so good guys there. Another No Kings protester with gun tried to start a fight with the cops. That's a good. It's a wonder he didn't get shot. Poor dude. Well, not really. Defy the cops, and you get shot in the testicles with rubber bullets. That can be no fun. I wonder if he's going to try that again. Southwest Sheriff Station claim they don't do any sleep. I wonder if that's really true, or they're exaggerating a tad on that. That will do it for today. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 Hours Wide to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
All right, Roy. And you heard Trump left that thing early in Canada, huh?
Oh, he did? No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he left. He left today. He's on his way back to Washington now. I guess they're getting some thing together.
Yeah, that was the G7 was meeting. He went there yesterday.
Yeah, he left. He left this afternoon, 2 days early, supposedly. And he was saying something to get a meeting ready. For the people, the war people there when he gets back to Washington. You know what I mean? The war room or something like that. Right. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know the Chinese also issued a warning to their citizens in Israel to leave now.
It could definitely get hotter over there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it sounds like it, huh?
Yep.
Well, they need to wipe those guys off the face of
it.
So
my contention is either get in there and get it done, or just back the hell off of them and let them destroy themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you got two choices. Either level that frickin' place over there in the Middle East, or just say, hey, as long as you keep it in your corridor over there, whatever, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as no American troops get touched or anything like that, then we'll stay out of it. But we'll see. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Got it.